Hello, everyone. We'll just take a couple of minutes whilst the stragglers are coming in. It's a bit unfair to say stragglers. They're here on time. It's maybe a bit unfair. And then I'll do a quick introduction in a couple of minutes. Just our speakers today. You're all very welcome wherever you are. The structure today really will be Andy's going to talk for a few minutes through the resource. And then we're delighted to be joined by Dr. Ed Webb-Ingall from London Community Screen Archive. Video Archive. Sorry, is the proper title. And also Michael Pattison from the Border Community Film Archive as well. And they're going to talk about their work in developing new collections and sort of are very symptomatic and representative of the kind of the work that this resource is meant to sort of connect those kind of archives and exhibitors across the BFI FAN. So we're delighted they're able to join us today. Yeah, we've got plenty of people here. This is a great turnout. I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised. Every time I've ever put an event on all the way through my working life, I'm always surprised when people come in. So it's always nice. Yeah, we've got enough people now. So I think, Andy, do you want to take over and lead off?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Andy Robson. I'm the BFI Fan Champion for Screen Heritage, which essentially means kind of bringing about research and development for BFI Fan members, so independent cinemas and film festivals and community venues like you all represent here, to allow you to build more confidence with Screen Heritage activity, which essentially means linking exhibitors and the archive sector together, creating more kind of links and partnerships for kind of screen activity across a kind of a broad range of approaches, and really kind of unlocking new audiences for your venues and connecting that with perhaps more kind of diverse material around the UK. So essentially that's a nice little setup for this new resource that we put together, which started last year. And I reached out to a number of curators, programmers, as well as filmmakers and producers who potentially have worked with screen heritage organizations that kind of work outside of the regional and nationals. I think that was the kind of the main remit for the resource. I think the regional and nationals are, of course, very well established, but we really wanted to kind of open up that conversation wider to kind of bring more visibility and awareness to organizations that preserve collections outside of that network across the UK, to really kind of allow you to have more links and connections with those materials so you can put them on screen, really. So I'll just share my screen, and then we can just briefly go through the resource. Just make it full screen there. So yeah, we called it the Exhibit in the UK's Hidden Moving Image Archives. I think the idea on hidden is to really just bring more kind of visibility to screen archive work as a whole. It's always at the end of the filmmaking process, and more eyes need to be on that, purely based on that kind of process. So yeah, we really wanted to kind of build on the first year of our work, which is really kind of developing the BFI Screen Heritage Resource Guide, which you can find a link in the first page here in the introduction. So that essentially is really a beginner's guide for any programmer who's really keen to kind of work with archives and put more kind of screen heritage work on the screen across the UK. And really gives you kind of hints and pointers to how you go about that, giving you a refresh of all the kind of regional and national film archives that exist, all the contact details, how to access that collection via their databases, and just give you a broad overview of how you could potentially go about that in kind of a theatrical setting, or maybe more of an experimental setting with outdoor screenings and kind of wider projection work, really. So really the resource, structurally, we've give you a kind of an introduction of how we went about the brief kind of research period. And then we've kind of brought together examples, roughly about 40 examples of screen archives organizations out there in the UK that are in operation right now. And we kind of grouped them together across kind of artist moving image organizations. There's some more kind of activist collections as well, which we can pinpoint, as well as kind of more established distributors that kind of focus more on the kind of social and social justice. There's collections that represent the working class, but also more diverse communities such as Black, South Asian, Southeast and Asian people, plus global majority representation. I thought it was important just to pinpoint and highlight broadcast and newsreel archives, just to give you a reminder. London Screen Archives, which is a regional film archive within that kind of network established already, but I think it was really a good idea to kind of bring out some of the examples of the collections that London Screen Archives houses. And also just another refresh of the regional and national film archives as well, with details and contact details so you can get involved. So skipping on, Artist Moving Image, I think, is kind of well established, but Lux is one of the leading organizations in the UK to house Artist Moving Image work, alongside Cine Nova, which hosts over 400 feminist titles within its collection. I think it was important because to highlight these, particularly if you're interested in kind of experimental film and video art, it's a completely diverse collection and has very key perspectives from Asian, Black, and disabled feminist filmmakers, as well as LGBTQI plus representation as well. What came out of the research, there's a lot of kind of activist collections out there. It's interesting from the archive point of view that a lot of these come from the kind of 90s onwards or early 90s. You see Undercurrents there started in 1993. So this is really kind of focused on more political campaigning and social justice, workers' rights, and climate change as well. But then a lot of these other collections, mainly The Spirit of Revolt, which is based in Glasgow, which kind of brings together the Camcorder Gorillas collection. That was really kind of spanning 2003 to 2019. So very more kind of recent digital or early kind of DV cam archive. But screen heritage to me as a definition is kind of very, very wide. So it really kind of brings in a lot of that history over the more recent past. In terms of more kind of socially focused distributors, I've highlighted Concord Media, which have existed since the kind of late 50s. Again, more on the kind of social change, charting that kind of history over the kind of second half of the 20th century. Huntley Film Archives, I think, is well established already and is more on the commercial side, but I think there's an awful lot of material in terms of documentary footage that can be sourced and put on the screen. And there's other examples here of more working class and activist titles. So there's kind of a lot of crossover with these kind of categories already. Working class, I think Amber Films. I'm based up in Newcastle, and I've had a lot of connection with Amber, but they're one of the leading collections in the UK that kind of have recorded working class life up in the Northeast since the late 60s. And there's other examples here within other members of the workshop movement who are kind of a key kind of representative movement of filmmakers across the late 20th century. Vivid projects who are based in Birmingham, host the Birmingham Film and Video Workshop, and also up in Edinburgh, Pilton Video, which did a very similar thing to Amber and the Birmingham Film and Video in terms of recording working class life in video in Edinburgh. And they oversee the Pilton Video, which can be accessed. We're going to be hearing from Michael, who represents the Borders Community Film Archive shortly, so we'll be handing over to him. But also that is based up in on the border town of Howick. And there's another example here from another Scottish archive in the Outer Hebridean location. I think it's pronounced Uist Film. But again, looking at more kind of working class history from the 70s and 80s around kind of trade and work on the island. In terms of representation to more kind of diverse perspectives, me and Hugh did a seminar with the ICO on one of their archive days, and we had representatives from the Pan-African Cinema Archive speaking about their incredible collection that they have brought together over the last few years, which can be accessed, representing UK African representation across the last 50 or so years. Kino Library, it is on the commercial side, but I think it's a very fascinating collection of material, particularly kind of pinpointing kind of hip hop and rave and punk and that kind of UK lifestyle and social change. And interestingly, it does have collections of pioneering Black British filmmakers, particularly Don Letts and Menelik Shabazz. And again, up here in Newcastle, the Chinese Independent Film Archive, which is more on the academic side, um, and again, kind of representing the independent scene in China over the last 30 years, which is a very kind of interesting history. But there is a space up here in Newcastle University to kind of access that, but I know they're expanding with more kind of exhibition work. So keep an eye out on that activity. Yes, just a reminder that there's always material within our broadcast and newsreel archives. From my experience, the pricing and licensing is always on the expensive side, particularly with the BBC and ITV. But I think if you're putting together any kind of screenings, it's always worth kind of reaching out to the broadcast houses and see if you can kind of negotiate down on a particular film that you're keen on bringing about. Yeah, and so London Screen Archives, as I said, they are a member of the National and Regional Film Archives, but they have a unique structure which kind of brings together a mass of collections across London and Greater London. A lot of them are from charities and museums and other organizations. So I think it's really, I just wanted to make sure to kind of give you a breakdown to kind of highlight some of these collections that are really do connect with kind of BFI criteria around representation. But I'll let you unpack that. But just to say that we'll be hearing from Ed from the London Community Video Archive, who will be speaking about all the work that they've done over the last 10 years. But also within this, you also have the Imperial War Museum, the Wellcome Collection, and the Royal Anthropological. So very kind of well-established organizations within that umbrella within London Screen Archives. And again, I just wanted to kind of celebrate the work of the regional nationals side by side, the more kind of hidden and specialist and independent collections. So it's just a real breakdown of the nine regional UK archives alongside the 4 national ones. And here we have the links to the databases, the contact for you to get in touch, and also a general coverage of their kind of collections and how far they stretch across the UK, so you get an understanding of the counties and the regions that they represent. So there's the 9 there. And I do love a map, and I'm sure Hugh's laughing right now, but I wanted to give you a more kind of visual appreciation of all the archives that we brought together across the UK. So you can all kind of pinpoint them. And I hope they're all in the right place. So sorry if they're not, and anyone can have a go at me. In terms of additional ideas, it's always good to kind of speak to your local councils and authorities as another example of connecting to material that sits outside the regional and nationals. A lot of councils and authorities do have their own collections. Some of them won't be accessible, some of them won't be digitized, but some of them might be. So it's always good to kind of get in contact and see if anything is available and relevant to the film screening that you are planning. And then I've also put together some further research ideas. So these are non-film moving image collections. So they don't store moving image collections, but they do kind of have a commitment to kind of film history. So I thought it'd be a good idea to give you a bit of a heads up and the kind of organizations that you could partner with, mainly for Q&As if you need a panel person to come along and speak on their expertise on the subject, for instance. But again, just giving you a rundown of what exists out there for kind of further partnerships for your venue. And I think that's about it. Here's the BFI Film Hubs, just as a reminder. And here's my workings over the last year of all the lovely people that helped me put this together. So filmmakers, programmers, curators, producers, and some of the lead programmers from our lead hub venues as well that are incredibly helpful. And a big thanks to Hugh and Sarah over at Northern Ireland. But that's it from me for the time being. I'm going to hand over to, is it Michael first?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome Michael Pattison from Alchemy, who will be speaking about the Borders Community Film Archive, which was one of those examples within the resource that we put together. So welcome to Michael.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I'm Michael Pattison. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a director of Alchemy Film Arts, the organisation that initiated Borders Community Film Archive. I'm going to be chatting a little bit about Alchemy to set a context before introducing what the Borders Community Film Archive was and is. More on that choice of words in a moment. Then we'll go into Haik Film Group, which is a small group of filmmakers whose films form the core, the basis of the archive. Haik Pictorials, which is a series of films that they made. Again, it's a core element of the archive. Digitization and exhibition. Some of the challenges that we face as an arts organization that curates first before it necessarily identifies as an archive, and then what next. Alchemy's based in Haik in the Scottish Borders. You can cross-reference this map, which I got from getthedata.com, to the one that Andy's provided on the resource to see if Haik is located in the right location. We work at Alchemy with artists and communities to come together, have conversations and strengthen communities. So very much the emphasis on film as an instrumental driver of activity, although it is an end in itself too. We specialize in experimental film and artists moving image, and anything sort of adjacent to that broad church. We produce and deliver the festival, the UK's Festival of Experimental Film and Artists Moving Image each year. We also deliver a year-round community engagement, skills development and creative learning programme. And we also host Scotland's only film-specific residencies programme. These three strands form a kind of strategically intersecting programme which is key to our audience development and engagement strategy. Borders Community Film Archive, the title of this is historic, and I'm really pleased that Andy's resource is digital because it's already out of date in terms of Borders Community Film Archive being the title of the project. We initiated it in 2020, more or less as a way of generating a structure or scaffold of acquiring responsibility for an archive that we knew existed. And the reason why we wanted to acquire partial responsibility for this archive was because we were at that point putting together a permanent moving image installation, which was going to be housed in a building here in Haik to reanimate a Victorian water wheel. So basically, Alchemy is based on the third floor of a former mill. That the building itself is also a theatre, a cafe, a cinema, and office spaces. And beneath the thick glass floor of the cafe here is pretty much a massive Victorian water wheel, which is no longer in use. And we worked with an artist called Andy McKinnon, who's actually based in Uist in the Outer Hebrides and is responsible for Uist Film and the Tykirshava Film Archive there. Andy wanted to make an installation to reanimate the Victorian water wheel. Artists are much cheaper, we've been told, than engineers. So it was easier and cheaper to reanimate the wheel as opposed to reactivate it. So in order to make that viable, we needed enough diversity in terms of the moving image archive that was then going to be projected onto the glass floor and the water wheel. And in order to do that, we initiated Borders Community Film Archive to lend in a sort of structure to any fundraising campaigns that we needed to do, and also to generate kind of content. It was also a means by which we could rechannel resources that were previously allocated and ring-fenced, but freed up by accommodation and travel budget lines during lockdown. So it was a way of reallocating our resources in support of our organizational strategic aims. Hoik Film Group was and is the partner that's provided the basis, the core, if you like, of the Borders Community Film Archive. They were founded in 1964. They were the cine arm of what was Hoik Camera Club, a group of photographers that still exists to this day. But getting impatient with stills photography, Hoik Film Group set up its own group. These were amateur cineasts. They worked in the mills here, Hoik being a mill town responsible for producing international cashmere and textiles of international standard. They made a film called Sons of Heroes to commemorate the 450th anniversary of a small but culturally significant skirmish that happened here, in which a bunch of local youths in 1514 basically stole the flag from a group of marauding, invading English soldiers. I think they may have even killed them. And Sons of Heroes was a 30-minute epic made with the community resilience that we as an organization continually are drawn to. And with proceeds from the sales of the world premiere of Sons of Heroes, Hoik Film Group was able to acquire a sweetie shop in Croft Road in the town, and convert that sweetie shop into a 42-seat community-run cinema, which is what we're looking at here on the slide. So this is housed in an apartment block, basically, on the ground floor. The seats came from a former cinema which had closed in town. You'll see the seats in more detail in a moment. Alongside Sons of Heroes, they made a series of one-reel comedies and also the Hoik Pictorials, which was a series of annual newsreel style snapshots of a year in the life of Hoik as a town. They made them between 1965 and 1974. They made a special entry in 1980, and then another one on VHS, which is about 5 years long, in 2000. But these were films made on 8mm and Super 8. They are feature length, and they give a great, taken together, they give a great aggregate picture of economic change across a very dramatic period in both the town and the UK more broadly. They capture ancient annual customs, such as the common riding here, which is historically rooted to that 1514 skirmish. Annual traditions, all the things that audiences back then and audiences today, we found, love to come along and watch. This being a mill town, the same period sees a lot of strikes and protests. In 1969, due to the beaching cuts initiated by our beloved Tory government, the railway was closed in the region and hasn't since reopened. So all of the kind of multiple deprivation and economic decline that we've seen as a result of neoliberalization is kind of encapsulated in these amazing documentary portraits. So Alchemy saw resources, or as I said, reallocated pre-existing budgets to the digitization of these 11 pictorials plus Sons of Heroes. We also launched a campaign to generate interest from the public in, scouring the attics during lockdown of their relatives living and otherwise, to then bring those unseen for years reels to us so that we might think about outsourcing them to be digitized, whereby we kind of the reciprocal contract there is that they get the reels digitized and for keepsakes for their own posterity. We get to include them in the Borders Community Film Archive so that we can continue to curate events around those digitized films. And then they get, because we don't have the resources to actually house the original reels, they get the reels back, including the USB or whatever it was that also includes the digitized film. And then we partnered with the Outer Hebrides Film Archive, which Andy drew attention to there, because it just so happened that the Outer Hebrides Film Archive within that was a bunch of amazing footage from Hawick. This is an image here of the wedding of Hawick's former provost, Zandra Elliott, in St. Mary's Kirk, which is just closed actually recently. In terms of exhibition, what we're seeing there is a bunch of school kids. Hawick has 7 primary schools. This is 3 or 4 pupils from one of those 7 schools, looking down at the glass floor of the Heart of Hawick Cafe, and beneath that glass floor there is a projector projecting an upward assemblage of moving image archives from the pictorials and films adjacent to that historically. So this is an image of the water wheel beneath the glass floor, onto which is an animated silhouette of a cornet, which is basically the annually elected flag bearer of the town. Because this is animated, to look down at that, it gives the impression of the wheel itself moving. We also have exhibited annual archive screenings. This is an image of post-screening Q&A with then 92-year-old Scott Rennick, sadly no longer with us, who had directed Sons of Heroes and many of the other pictorials back in the 60s. We opened our 2024 flagship event, Alchemy Film and Moving Image Festival, with a screening of Sons of Heroes, newly digitized, and preceded by a performance from Hawick Saxon Band, which I understand is Scotland's oldest saxon band, which is an interesting fact in itself. But in addition to all of this, we continue to screen in partnership with Hawick Film Group at the premises that they own. So these are the beautiful seats that they acquired back in 1964 from the Pavilion Cinema in Hawick High Street, which is now a Boots Chemist. We also screen in a DCI compliant auditorium, which is in the building here. So we partner directly with the cultural trust that runs that cinema. Opportunities here for exhibition. As I said at the start, we run a residencies program for artists and filmmakers. One of those projects was the Big Border Bogle Hunt by Borders-based playwright Jules Horn, who worked with members of the Alchemy team to create an augmented reality digital exhibition, whereby images lifted from the archives were accessible via QR codes in and around town, so that you could engage and consume these archive images at the same time as contemporary surroundings. And another project which we completed earlier this year part of a National Lottery Heritage Fund project, Hike and Common, was a feature film called Rum and Milk. You'll see here two images, two stills from old pictorials of ceremonies that take place during the annual common riding traditions here, paired with two images of our own cameras capturing the event as it unfolded in 2024. Another opportunity was that we were able to launch kind of a Save the Cinema campaign for the Croft Road Cinema, the premises, by interviewing long-standing members of Hoyk Film Group. So some of the challenges as we move towards the end of my presentation, Alchemy's core values prohibit us from deploying venues that aren't wheelchair accessible. And so our screenings at Croft Road, the community cinema owned by Hoyk Film Group, needs to be in partnership explicitly with the group, because if it's just an Alchemy Film and Arts event, it would kind of contravene our accessing policy on account of the fact that, you know, you can see here that there's an entrance to the cinema behind former President David Peacock. He's the guy who's standing up there in the aisle, and the entrance to the cinema just prohibits accessibility. We've got the cost of digitization. That's a huge challenge for us. It's going to be a huge challenge for any arts organization that needs to outsource the digitization. It's especially challenging and costly when the house responsible for digitizing it do a subpar job and you need to outsource it again to get a better job done. Another challenge for us is curation versus abundance. So we're curators. We like to put on events so that audiences can come and see films and then participate in, I suppose, bespoke events that are meaningful to them. Alongside that is a broad culture these days that expects and feels entitled to everything being available all of the time. So there's a constant kind of battle between us having to kind of be perceived as gatekeepers, safeguarding and being custodians of an archive, creating access points and entry points to that archive, while kind of battling requests for just putting it all online, basically, so that people can enjoy it at their leisure. Another challenge that we've found, that we've encountered several times now, is that these being archive images taking within a working class but incredibly ordinary community in the 1960s, they also contain images that we don't want to perpetuate now. So racial imagery, or imagery of, you know, stereotypical caricatures at town fairs, for instance. So one of the questions for us as an organisation is, to what extent do we curate the archive that we are custodians of here, and how do we do that without granting a notoriety to the kind of censored images? What next? We are about to announce that we are now in receipt until June 2026 of BFI Screen Heritage Funds for both project funding, which will allow us to deliver a series of public events to engage audiences that are already intrinsic to this material. We know that there's an audience there because Alchemy is not really in the habit of setting off on projects unless we know that there's a demand for it. And also, in addition to that, there's a skills development component, so that as an organization, we can improve and acquire the skills needed to maybe in the long term digitize films in-house. So that it would address the costs associated with digitization, and often the capacity that is stretched organizationally in order to digitize stuff. And Borders Community Film Archive has been, I suppose, in terms of its strategies and its imperatives, been absorbed into what is now Urain Film Archive going forward. That's hot off. It's not even on the press yet, but that's kind of a sneak preview, if you like, of what's going to be announced by us. These are my two colleagues, Susanna Frintova, Alchemy's project coordinator, and Savra Douglas, Alchemy's project assistant in the community cinema run by Hoik Film Group, doing all kinds of very legal and above board things with the film reels there. That's it for me. That's the closing still from Sons of Heroes, beautifully restored last year by Restore in London. And over to, I think, Ed now. If not, Andy, if you want to come back in.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That's really fantastic. Thanks so much, and thanks for bringing back all those images as well, just to give us a real picture of what's happening there. Just to say also that the resource that we put together is a live document. So if there are any kind of organizations on the call or out there that we haven't included, we're really keen to kind of bring them into the resource and kind of update it as we go across the next few years. So please do highlight or nudge us on anything that will be relevant. But we're now going to hand over to Dr. Ed Webb-Ingall from the London Community Video Archive. So we're going to take that kind of more rural setting and then come into a more kind of metropolitan setting and how that archive represents itself. So over to Ed.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Michael. It's amazing to see all the work you've done already. And also this resource, Andy, is amazing. I'm excited to dig into it. Can you see the website okay? Here we go. I'm just going to start by trying to play this if I can. That's something that we tried to play before and at the end of every screening we do now to try to sort of locate who we are and what we do. So I'm just going to read some stuff out that I wrote about the collection and the work that we do at London Community Video Archive. So we'll be going for 10 years next year, which came as a bit of a surprise to me early this year when I was working it out. But we started in 2015 when community video makers Andy Porter, Tony Dowman, and a peer of theirs, Heinz Nig, came together, and they wanted to collect, preserve, and share videos made by them and their peers in the early years of community video. So starting in 1969, when portable video cameras first became portable but also accessible, up until the mid-1980s, at that point when Channel 4 and the end of the GLC meant that the landscape of video activism changed for them. And it was at this time that I met them, and I was doing a PhD on the history and practice of community video. I'd come at it as a filmmaker looking for methods to make more democratic sort of documentaries and non-fiction film more collaboratively. And Tony Dowman was one of my supervisors, and I began to work with them to develop what would then become the London Community Video Archive. And just a bit of background about what community video is to kind of situate the work we have in the collection. So portable video recording, which is now a technology we kind of associate with smartphones, became available back in the early 1970s, which made it possible for individuals and communities to make what was ostensibly their own television for the first time. The medium was taken up by people ignored or underrepresented in mainstream media, and the videos that they made are what we mean by community video. And when we started in 2015, this rich heritage was under threat of disappearing, both because of the physical decay and disintegration of the tapes, and also because of the aging memories of the people that made them. And there was a sense of a desire for Tony and Andy and Heinz to look back at some of that work, and for me to really use it and in the present as a way of thinking about how to make work now, and also to learn about activism now as well. So a bit about the acronym, the LCVA. So the L stands for London. This is where I'm going to undo our name, essentially. So the L stands for London, but the collection spans from Milton Keynes in the north to Reading in the west and Brighton to the south. So it's more like London, the southeast, really, but we have a focus on London specifically because of the histories of the founders who basically mainly worked in the southeast of London. was where their work was being carried out, so we kind of focus on that area. And also I'll talk a bit about funding and how that affects the area we focus on as well. The C stands for community video, which is a slippery term which we use to make a distinction between this kind of work and other kinds of work, and has been variously referred to at different times as participatory video, street video, alternative video, grassroots media, guerrilla television, militant video, and process video, and can be seen right up into the present with things like video activism, citizen journalism, and cyber activism, and also some socially engaged art practices. And so we see the term community video as quite a loose term, which kind of encapsulates this, but distinguishes maybe what we do from more traditional documentaries. Because all the work in our collection is characterized by activist impulses and, on the whole, participatory production methods. The V stands for video, but not all the material in the archive is on video. Some of the early examples are shot on 16, and that was we include that to show kind of the precursor of some of the work that we hold. And the A stands for archive, but we're more than a passive archive. We think it's really important that, as well as preserving this work, it's also as important to make sure it's available in the present, and continues to be a growing and dynamic collection. So we're not gatekeepers of this material. And again, I'll talk a bit about our reasons for that. So over the past 10 years, we received 2 project grants. So we're voluntarily run otherwise, but we've received a project grant in 2015, 2016, to set up the project, which included collecting, digitizing, and cataloging over 60 tapes, alongside supporting documentation, like paper documentation, that kind of made that more contextualized, I guess. And then we also developed the website to host the material, ran a series of 30 events in our first year to establish us as an organization that organizes these kind of reactivation screenings, bringing material back into circulation, holding on to the original intentions of the work. We also did oral history interviews with people who were involved in the production of those videos to add further context to what they're all about. But the central aim of our organization, as our bumper says, is to collect, preserve, and share community videos to recover and revive this history so that it can be used as a resource for contemporary debate and activism. And so it's this kind of reactivation, looking to the original intentions of the work and the politics of the work in order to continue that work. And in 2024, we received our second project grant with the aim to become more sustainable and resilient as an organization. And this is partly to do with, I guess, now the aging memories of our founding members as well now, who are looking to step not away from the organization, but to make it feel a bit more resilient and sustainable, whatever happens to them, in a way. It's kind of what they're saying. And that also included an overhaul of our website. And we employed a project director, which is me, and a coordinator for a year, as well as 2 archive trainees who've been working with London Screen Archives to learn how to not just archive and catalogue, but also to think about collaborative community screening events. So it's kind of this closed loop traineeship where they're not just learning how to archive and catalog work, but also how to put it back into the world. So they're creating events at the moment. It's the second half of their year. We also hired a accessibility consultant, because I'm really keen, although we have no money, it's really important for accessibility to be at the core of all the work we do. Similar to what Michael was talking about in terms of only work with wheelchair accessible venues, we're working with an accessibility consultant to think holistically about us as an organization, to think about how accessibility can feed into everything that we do, in whatever money you have, to think about affordable ways to really send to that work. That's really important to us, and that's been really exciting and challenging as a process to start to see where the limits are when there isn't money there to do certain things. So right now, for example, we're working with a curator to create a collection, who's working with us specifically to think about, we've got a budget to caption videos in our collection at the moment, and so we're thinking about how to best spend that and what to caption as a starting point. It's also allowed us to expand our collection to address some key gaps, extending our period up until the mid-1990s. We've streamlined our booking system. We've also organised another year of events, and we began to develop a more sustainable organisational structure, which is ongoing this year, which is kind of where we find ourselves now, looking to the future of the organisation, which, when we don't have any project funding, like I said, is voluntarily run. So I've been thinking a lot about how do we stay small and agile and keep doing the thing we want to do, and not get big and then not be able to do things how we want to do things. So thinking in sort of time spans of like 10 years, 5 years, rather than like eternity, and thinking what we can really do in that time based on what we have. And so we want, when we don't have funding, we want the website to run really efficiently so people can access stuff, watch stuff, and organize screenings without a lot of extra support. I'm going to talk you through a bit of that through the website in a bit. The collection now contains over 200 videos tracing various political moments and movements from grassroots local organizing in neighborhoods, housing estates, and playgrounds in the early 70s, through to videos made around identity and experience in the late 1970s and mid 1980s, into global issues. We've just taken on some of Undercurrent's collection actually into our collection into the 1990s. I've also been making a collection of AIDS activist videos specifically that is going to be gathered on the LCV over the coming year. Mirroring the focus on accessibility that motivated much community video, everything we collect is available to watch in full and for free on our website. It can be searched in various ways by year, title, or theme, or using our search bar. And I might just quickly have a look at that. So this, you can see the screen. You can just type in anything here, like I don't even know, like housing. Let's see what comes up. I should have practiced this, so a good thing will come up. But we have a lot of stuff on housing. Where there's oral history interviews or videos, but we've recently added a new part of our website called collections. So now we've also organized our videos into themes, which are constantly changing and growing. So community action, community media, culture, education, elders, housing, race and racism. And this is something that we can keep adding to. So there'll be a section list for specifically captioned videos as well. And then we're going to have some curated collections by invited curators or programmers. So when they put together programs, they'll also exist here as sort of packages so people can see and get ideas about how they might want to program things. And each of these has got text written by our apprentices describing some of the material in these collections as well. And equally, if you're interested in different neighborhoods, I think, like, for example, I don't know if East London works, but we have a lot of stuff sort of in Whitechapel right now. So let's see if this works. Yep, so a lot of East London stuff. So you can also search by area as well. In our funded periods, we do have an allocated budget to support people to organize screening events. As we don't have a physical space, we do rely on collaborations with external organizations and partners to co-host these screenings. And we do a lot of what I call sort of curatorial matchmaking, helping people or groups who want to organize a screening to find spaces to do this, and also work with organizations to think about how they could diversify their program as well. And this is how I think it's a great way to build audience and engagement with our collection, is by bringing together the people who want to screen a video with a host organization, sometimes a third audience partner who might have an affiliation with a video, or maybe as a fundraiser for an organization. We've also found with our work that whenever we organize a screening, someone in the audience tends to want to organize another screening. So it's a lot of word of mouth programming, which we really support. I was going to talk through just some examples of some of the screenings, how we work as screenings. So I'm going to go into our program section for this, and if you scroll down, so a lot of the time someone has heard of us already and they want to organize a screening event, and it's just a case of them, sometimes they've already chosen the films, and other times they want an idea of some films to look for, and we can just point them and they just get on with it. This was a great event organized by Not Another Film School at Gasworks in South London, where they worked with their young people's group to go through the collection and then put a program together themselves. And because of the way the website is organized, and because you can watch everything for free, it is really easy to put together programs rather than just by synopsis, but actually by actually watching the videos. So they just did that. They got in touch. So maybe I'll do this bit now. So we have this tab here now, organize a screening, which takes you through to a booking form now. So it's much more straightforward. So the first thing, if anyone wants to organize a screening, is to fill out our booking form. It's going to work. Yes, it's all working. So you can fill out a booking form, which just gets all the information in one place. So you haven't got to do loads of, in terms of our labor as an organization, it means we'll get all the information all the things we need in terms of budgets, whether there's captioning budgets, where it's going to happen, how much. We kind of would like 2 weeks notice ideally before a screening, but we had one this weekend that we started organizing on Monday, but it was because it was a fundraiser to support the Old Kent Road Area Action Plan, who we've been working with a bit. They've been showing videos to help do consultations around this area of London called the Old Kent Road, which is apparently going to be the biggest building site in Europe soon. So they're doing using video screenings around housing and activism to sort of talk about how they might do similar organising now, and that's what's happened. But organised really quickly. We also have more involved approaches to programming where we lead on organising, often motivated by our new acquisition. So if we get a new video, I really want to think about how that can be put into the world and made public as quickly as, not quickly, but as effectively as possible. So we recently acquired some videos by a queer activist group called Outrage through the Bishopsgate archive and through his personal collection. And so we worked with Lux, who Andy mentioned, to do a screening of a new acquisition of theirs by Stuart Marshall with some of our new work, looking at AIDS activist video in the decade of 83 to 93. And Mark came to that, and it was a great way to sort of contextualize the work and to make it public in a way that kind of made sense. Another way we do screenings is work with film festivals. So we have an ongoing relationship with Open City Doc Fest. This year we did two events, then working with our new acquisitions from Tower Hamlets Arts Project and the Basement Project, who are based in Whitechapel. They're a young people's video group in the 70s. And we knew that Open City were working with a young people's video group from Marseille. So we did a collaborative screening with the group called Film Flam, based in Marseille, who really mirrored the work of the Basement Project in the 70s. And that was a really nice event, bringing more contemporary work and artist experimental work with this work from the 70s. We're currently working with, I wanted to just plug this to everyone, currently work with Open City on our newest collaboration, which is a film challenge, inviting anyone to make creative responses to the collection. And a selection of those will be chosen and shown at the festival next year, and each of the videos screened will get a screening fee as part of that. And that's all that's available online, and they're due for submissions on December 13th. But I won't talk about that loads because it's all there. But I would really encourage people to have a look at that if you're thinking of using archives to make videos in new ways, not just, how much time am I nearly done? Yeah, I think, how much time have I left? I'm fine. So, yeah, just to say, now to organise a screening, we have the online booking form, and we tend to ideally charge a £50 handling fee per video shown to cover just the cost of running the website. And any extra money goes back into the organisation. The funding we get dictates where the screenings take place. So right now we are using our funding to organise screenings in London and the South East, but we support screenings all over the country and the world. This year our work has been shown at BAM in New York and as part of an exhibition in the Netherlands. So it's starting to get a bit more of a global reach. We're planning some screenings in New York next year, hopefully as well, to start to make those connections about the work that's going on in the UK and what's going on internationally. And just a bit about upcoming events. So we've got our archive trainees and project coordinator working on a number of events for this autumn winter, including one on November 29th, just confirmed at the Rio in London with Club de Femme for World AIDS Day, looking at connections between AIDS activism and trans healthcare. We have an event at the ICA. This is a really big collaboration. It's the ICA Bishopsgate Fetish Archive and Content Warning. We have where they show videos. They do screening specifically on VHS from VHS. So we're showing one of our videos from 1994 on December the 12th. And then we're working with Mayday Rooms as part of their Archiving from Below series, and also a screening event at the Barbican in January as well, just been confirmed. But all this to say is to get in touch to organise a screening. Is what we want to do, is what the work exists for. And have a click around the website, and I'm sure you'll find something that draws you in and hopefully makes you want to organise a screening yourself. And then you just click the organise a screening button, and we can do the rest. I think I'm done.
Thank you, Ed. That was amazing. A real abundance of work there, I think, from two archives, from the similar kind of context in terms of community, but one from more of a rural context, and then seeing Ed's work there from London. We do have a bit of time. Please, I can't see any questions in the chat, but if there are any questions from floor, as it were, please do fire away. Maybe I can get Hugh to kind of coordinate as well.
Yeah, there's nothing in the chat, but I was really taken by how both collections use cinema, and that exhibition's kind of really part of it, and kind of the waft and the weave of the story as well. I think that's great to see. It always cheers me up, obviously. But
actually, I got a question in terms of exhibition. Recently, there's a great trend of film on film, as in film being projected, and both of you have film in your collections. Is that something that there's audience appetite? Is that something that you already do?
For us, we can't really afford it usually unless someone else wants to do it. I talked to, when the BFI were doing their film on film this year, we talked about showing some of Liberation Film stuff on film. We don't have it ourselves, but the BFI holds it, which has been great. But this showing stuff on VHS seems exciting. We've never done that before because we also don't, like Michael was saying, we don't have the facilities to hold physical copies of anything, so we just digitize it and give it back. On the whole, so we're not about the material, we're more about getting it out into the world.
We would have a means of exhibiting from 16mm, for instance, if there was any films in the archive that came our way on that format, but it's even smaller gauge than that. So, you know, a lot of these films had been previously digitized by rephotographing from a projection, whereby Hoik Film Group members had photographed the projected image. So there was, you know, very pretty vignetting happening, but it wasn't really screenable in terms of our standards. So we're much more excited about, you know, what digital resources can be deployed to maximize what the image looks like when it's exhibited. Because if we were to screen it from 8mm, for instance, the image wouldn't be all that great due to the standard in which the reels are kept.
Yeah. I think it's obviously very important right now in terms of rep cinema, in terms of independent venues, and it's been covered in the press recently around how young audiences are connecting with kind of film. But I was just interested how that kind of dynamic works within kind of more kind of community archives. We do have a question from Lisa. Just curious about who you collaborated with BAM. I think that's to Ed.
Yeah, that's Brooklyn Art Museum in New York. It was, I don't know, I don't even remember who it was. I was going through my notes, remembered that we did something. We sent a link over and they showed something there, but that's about all I remember of it.
And another question, Ed, is there an age limit to the call out, the recent filmmaking call out?
I think so. Let's have a look. What I know of just says, yeah, I think because we have an expressions of interest form on the site. So where is it? It's under program, I think. Yeah, here and under the site. So I think you can anyone can be put in an expression of interest. It doesn't seem to be an age limit on it at all.
That's good because I think the focus has tended to be younger kind of filmmakers, you know, through like making film history and all that sort of stuff. So.
Oh no, yeah, I think we've said emerge. I don't like because there's two things that I didn't want to have is age or a competition. That's why it's a challenge, and that's why we say emerging filmmakers rather than an age limit, because I think it's just people who maybe it may be their first chance trying out making a film. But yeah, we're open to all.
Emerging is quite an elastic concept.
Exactly. Yeah, I rely on self-identification rather than me policing anyone's histories, really, to decide how they feel about that call out, really.
We have a question from Monica in relation to Tag L8 in Liverpool. How are you handling digital capacity on your site, Ed, in terms of storage, streaming, long-term preservation?
Great question. No, I know. I think I know that. We have a partnership with London Screen Archives, who are looking after the more sustainable storage of all of our. So everything that we have on the site is also held with them. We're using a website called Digital Ocean to hold all of our digital assets at the moment. We also have everything obviously backed up on hard drives. As you would have seen from that, we used to on Vimeo, and now we're using YouTube, which has been quite controversial within our team as to why we decided on that. It's a lot to do with accessibility, searchability, people coming across it more easily. Also, it's free to put stuff up there, but it's not ideal. So it was a real conundrum, but as an organization with no ongoing funding, it was a way of making sure that we could keep the lights on in a way. But yeah, everything is also held. I have it all written in writing how they describe it with LSA, but LSA have I think 3 different ways of storing all of their material as well. So one of the things our apprentices have been doing is putting everything that we have on the RCVA also on the LSA. So there's another place to search for it. And it's all held there.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I was ages ago with me and Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought so. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're coming to the end of the webinar. So I might hand back to Hugh just to kind of wrap up everything.
Yes, well, really all it remains me to say is thanks to Andy, Michael, and Ed for today's session, and also Andy for all your work on the resource. I think it's really it's going to be a really useful document, I think, for exhibitors and archives alike. And so having two great examples today as well, and thanks Michael and Ed for speaking so well about your collections. I mean, it's really fascinating work and very inspiring as well. So we will this recording will be out, sort of be shared out, and maybe Michael, you could share some slides with us as well, and we can disseminate it to the people who were here today. But do spread the word about the resource and tell your friends, as they say. But thanks for your time this afternoon, and speak soon, I hope.
Nice to see you. Well done, Andy. It's great.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to meet you. Bye.